Good morning. Oh, try it again. Good morning. Excellent. Thank you for being here. Welcome to Oak Tree. We're going to worship. We would love it if you would worship with us. Focused on you, and that as we lift our voices to you, as we come together and do something together as a group, that you would come and be with us. All of the earth, make straight a highway, a path for Lord Jesus, come. Even so, come, Lord Jesus, come. We wait for you. God, we wait, you're coming soon. So we wait for you. God, we wait, you're coming soon. Like a bride waiting for her groom, we'll be a church ready for you. Every heart longing for our King, we sing. Like a bride waiting for her groom, we'll be a church ready for you. Every heart longing for our King, we sing. Even so, come, Lord Jesus, come. 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 Walking around these walls, I thought by now they'd fall, but you have never failed me yet. Waiting for change to come, knowing the battle's won, for you have never my confidence. You never failed me yet.
Father, you never failed me. You never failed this church, God. We thank you for that. We ask you to remind us of that each day as we face stress, challenge, difficulties, that we would know that you're with us still. And you never left us.
It's coming on the clouds. Kings and kingdoms will bow down. Every chain will break as broken hearts declare His praise. Who can stop the Lord Almighty? Our God is the Lion of Judah. He's roaring with power and fighting our battles. Every knee will bow before Him. Our God is the Lamb that was slain for the sins of the world. His blood breaks the chains, and every knee will bow before the Lion and the Lamb. Every knee will bow before Him. Open up the gates, make way before the King of Kings. The God who comes to save is here to set the captives free. Who can stop the Lord Almighty? Our God is the Lion of Judah. He's roaring with power and fighting our battles. Every knee will bow before Him. Our God is the Lamb that was slain for the sins of the world. His blood breaks the chains. Every knee will bow before the Lion and the Lamb. Every knee will bow before Him. Who can stop the Lord Almighty? Who can stop the Lord Almighty? Who can stop the Lord Almighty? Who can stop the Lord? Who can stop the Lord Almighty? Who can stop the Lord Almighty? Who can stop the Lord Almighty? Who can stop the Lord?
be social. I'll bet some of these folks are your neighbors too.
Yes,
Oh, well,
let us go.
Some people sit down
Let
at
us
the
go.
sound of my voice. You know what? That trips me out.
It's a strange power to have.
It's so much power. Pressure. All right. That's, yeah. Then it feels like home, right? Well, I had a new experience today for whoever feels like listening. No worries. I rode my bike to church.
Woo!
Me and Joshua did.
Nice.
Yeah, it was Sean's bike, actually. It's a solid 5.5 miles. It was Sean's bike, actually, and I will say that men's bikes, particularly the seat part, is definitely made gender specific. I did not know that before today, but
That's why I get a big one.
yeah, no, that's what I also want a cruiser, so I have a road bike, and that is rough. Okay, so anybody been there? The road bikes? You do not want to go off a curb in a road bike. Just saying. All right. Okay, so next week we are kicking off all of our small groups. So there's a couple of them listed on here because they're special, apparently. I guess because they are for women, we wanted to give a heads up. The ones on the list are usually like anybody can sign up for them. And if you went as a guy to one of these, you might be like, I feel suddenly out of place. I don't know, maybe you'd like it. Maybe you'd learn something. Anyways, I don't think they'd kick you out. If you want to go try it out, I dare you. Okay, the Mom Set Free Bible Study and the Women's Evening Bible Study both start next week. Those are going to be, Mom Set Free is interesting because it's on Sunday right after church. Well, time to go get lunch in between. And then 1:30 at the Treehouse, they'll be gathering. So that still tends to be a time when more people are free, moms particularly. So think about that if you want to be a part of that. Also, the Women's Evening Bible Studies on Thursdays at Carolyn Kellogg's house. And that is from 6:30 to 8:30. So you can call or text her. All the contact numbers are always in your bulletin if you want to text or call for more information. Homeless Weekend has changed. I wanted to make sure that I got that out there. We are now going to be going to serve the homeless on the last Saturday of every month. So the next one will be 9/29, and that's still same time, 8 to 11. We meet at the Treehouse, make some breakfast stuff, take everything downtown, and then we're back by 11. So the reason why is because things got really congested that weekend. So a lot of people are coming out, a lot of churches, and actually the homeless people all know that ahead of time, so that sometimes there's actually no space for us to set up because of how many people are down there. So we figured every weekend there's a need, so we just decided to change that. Oh, I'm calling you. You're just gonna hang up on me? I'm totally kidding you. Okay. So you guys got that? So if you come out second Saturday of September at the Treehouse, then you're gonna be like, where is everybody? It's the last weekend. Okay. Next Sunday is our kickoff Sunday. All right. I feel like you could have gone through a whole thing. That didn't seem like enough without the drums. Do you want to give us a little spiel?
No, I don't have anything.
No. Right. Basically, my mode this morning was to put other people on the spot. As I'm still going.
Mission accomplished.
All right. All right. So, okay, it starts a half an hour early, heads up, 10 o'clock, but also it doesn't really matter what time you show up. But there's going to be free barbecue. It is very like a social day, okay? So don't come expecting chairs to look like this, because we're mostly going to be spending time with each other. That's why it is a good time to invite family, friends, neighbors, particularly who enjoy football, because it's also the kickoff of the NFL season. So, but feel free to welcome friends, family, and bring them free barbecue, spending time together, and they can also find out about small groups or something that they might be interested in their neighborhood. And you might be put on the spot to host something. Heads up. Okay. I think that's everything I got for today. This is our community. You gonna get there? You got it? Patient card. Okay, that should be on a chair. Chair in front of you. And if you have a prayer request, please note you can always write those on the back and then drop that in the offering basket. It goes to our prayer team. And also, if we don't have your email address, hold it. If we don't have your email address yet, you might want to put that on there because you get all these announcements once a week, only once a week. We don't blow up your inbox. And then you can even just click the link sometimes and add it to your calendar, especially if it's like a kids event or something and there's a sign up, there's links in there, so it makes it easier. We're going to have some offering after I pray, and if you call Oak Tree, your church home, and want to give today, you can use that text number or you can use envelopes in the back. If you're a guest here, please know we just want you to feel blessed by this morning and hope you just enjoy yourself. I'm going to pray for us now. God, I thank you for this day. I thank you for the beautiful weather still. I pray that you would be with us this morning. Let us enjoy each other and let us start enjoying our neighbors a little bit more, branching out. And I recognize I had a couple opportunities this week and dodged some of them. So I pray that you would help me to prioritize just taking the time, taking that moment, even when it's not convenient. And learning somebody's name, making a connection that's new right around me in my world so that I can share life with more people and you can work through more people's lives. Pray these things in your name. Amen.
Did you see what this is new worship? I'm sure it's not a new thing, but I can't be the only one who's noticed how important identity has become, especially in the age of the internet. What group you're a part of, what you're affiliated with. And I think it's easy for us to get lost in those and kind of internalize those too much because ultimately we are who He says we are, and we are children of God, and that's who we should be. So let's sing that today.
Who am I that the highest King would welcome me? I was lost, but He brought me in. Oh, His love for me. Oh, His love for me. Who the Son sets free. Oh, it's free indeed. I'm a child of God. Yes, I am. Free at last, He has ransomed me. His grace runs deep. While I was a slave to sin, Jesus died for me. Yes, He died for me. Who the Son sets free. Oh, is free indeed. I'm a child of God. Yes, I am. In my Father's house, there's a place for me. I'm a child of God, yes I am. I am chosen, not forsaken. I am who you say I am. You are for me, not against me. I am who you say I am. I am chosen, not forsaken. I am who you say I am. You are for me, not against me. I am who you say I am. I am who you say I am. Sun sets free. Oh, it's free indeed. I'm a child of God. Yes, I am. In my Father's house, there's a place for me. I'm a child of God, yes I am. In my Father's house, there's a place for me. I'm I'm a child of God. Yes, I am. I am chosen, not forsaken. I am who you say I am. You are for me, not against me. I am who you say I am. I am chosen, not forsaken. I am who you say I am. You are for me, not against me. I am who you say I am. I am who you say I am. I am who you say I am. Who the Son sets free, hope is free in me. I'm a child of God. Yes, I am. In my Father's house, there's a place for me. I'm a child of God. Yes, I am.
Amen. You may be seated.
Good morning! Hey, welcome to Oak Tree. Glad you're here with us today. We have been doing a sermon series about neighbors. We've been talking about neighboring and the art of neighboring and what it means to be a good neighbor. And so this morning I thought I would start with a quiz. Grab your outlines if you would, and just find a spare spot somewhere on your outline. This is on the honor system. So on the honor system, I want you to write down your answers, and then we'll see who gets the most answers right. These are famous neighbors from TV, okay? Famous neighbors from TV. So the first one is Jerry Seinfeld. Who's Jerry Seinfeld's neighbor? Don't get shouted out. You'll give it away to the people around you. Write down who Jerry Seinfeld's neighbor was from that show. I really tried to do more current shows, and my kids couldn't help me at all with this. So it's a little old school, but okay, you ready? You got your answers down? Yes?
Yeah.
And the answer is?
Kramer.
Kramer. Okay. So Kramer's the first answer. Ready? Here we go. Second person, Rachel and Monica. Rachel and Monica. Who are their neighbors? They have famous neighbors. Who are their famous neighbors from that TV show back in the 90s? Okay, write it down. Write it down. After this, call me out. That's true. Early in the beginning of the show. Ready? It is, say it together, everybody. Joey and Chandler are their neighbors. Okay. So, keep your answers, write down. You're keeping score for yourself. Here we go. Homer Simpson. Homer Simpson has a famous neighbor on TV. And so write that down if you don't have it. This is where we start to separate the men from the boys and the girls from the women. Everybody write it down if you've got it. Keeping track of your own score. It wasn't allowed to watch it. I know, I got flack for it too back in the day. So the answer is Ned Flanders. Ned Flanders was their Christian neighbor who was, okay, it was his Christian neighbor, and so there was a lot of fun with that. All right, let's go next. Tim the Toolman Taylor. He had a very famous neighbor. This is from the old show. The old show. Who was his neighbor? You should know this. Although you would never recognize him because it is, everyone? Wilson, who always was behind the fence. You could never see his face. I read that in the last episode they showed his face or something like that. No, they didn't? Oh, did he? With a piece of mess. All right, here we go. This is where we get really hardcore. Lucy and Ricky Ricardo. Where's my old school people? Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Lucy and Ricky had some very famous neighbors that came over all the time. I'll give you a second if you're thinking about it. And then we'll see if anybody knows. On 3, who is it? Fred Nesselmertz. You guys, man, that is good. I didn't think people would get that as much. Fred Nesselmertz lived next door to Ricky and Lucy. All right, let's keep going. Here we go. These are how many people know this from Family Matters? The Family Matters, well, I used to know their name. Oh, the Winslows. This is the Winslow family from Family Matters. Does anyone know their famous neighbor? Probably more famous according to the show than even the Winslows themselves. It was on 3. Steve Urkel. It was Steve Urkel. All right, so I got 2 more. Here we go. The famous neighbor of Sheldon and Leonard. Sheldon and Leonard. Who was their famous neighbor? This story has gone on and on again over seasons. It's just changed. But in the beginning, it was Penny. Penny is their famous neighbor. And then the last one, this one goes back a little ways too for those that are nostalgic. How about Fred and Wilma Flintstone? Fred and Wilma. And they had famous neighbors who were Barney and Betty. Barney and Betty.
Rubble.
Bam Bam Pebbles.
Rubbles.
Yeah. Yeah.
The Rubbles.
Yeah, that's right, the Rubbles. All right, who got 6? 6? Who got 7? Staying up over there, 7, all 8.
I would say that's
Winner, chicken dinner. Nice job. You guys are awesome. I was going to bring you a cup of sugar to take to your neighbors, but I decided it would go bad. So anyway, just give them a round of applause. Give them a round of applause. So it's funny because on TV we watch how these neighbors become friends, and then in a lot of ways they become like family to these people, you know? They become, more than friends. And the question that we've been asking is, how do you go from neighbor or complete stranger neighbor to acquaintances and then move on to real relationships, these real relationships that you have? And so the tool that I gave you guys, we're talking about the art of neighboring, the tool that I gave you guys was the block map. And I gave you guys the block map. There's another one in your outline today. If you missed the last 2 weeks, then you got it with you. And I asked you to fill in the 8 closest homes to yours, the names, the first names of those people. How many people got to add a name to that list this week? Nice. Very good. Good. That's awesome. We're trying to fill that out so that we have some names. I can help with someone a couple of names. So this week, I dropped off one of the picnic tables. If you were here last weekend, I gave away picnic tables to people who would promise they would put them in their front yard so that they would meet some people. So I dropped off a picnic table one night, and as I was dropping it off, the kids all came outside, and we were playing around this picnic table. They were jumping off of the picnic table. Pastor Steve cannot be held liable for that. But they were jumping off and jumping to me, and they were laughing and screaming and doing, circles and grabbing onto my arm and flying. And so there was just a lot of fun and noise. I'm not kidding you, within 5 minutes, I had 2 neighbors walk outside, both ladies with a glass of wine in their hand, and they walked over to us, and I thought, either I'm in trouble or this is going to be okay. And they walked over and they said, hey, we heard the kids playing. We just wanted to see what was going on. And so I've been talking with them out there. They're drinking their wine. I said, hey, I'm Steve. What's your name? They gave me their 2 names. And so I got 2 names in the court of a place that they live on either side of the pot house. In the middle is what they told me. That's what they told me. I don't know if that's true or not. And I'm thinking, this is awesome. I got 2 names in 5 minutes because I dropped a table in their front yard. And the interesting thing to me is that these little things, those little moments, make a huge difference when it comes to meeting those people and getting in a relationship with them. So, this morning we're going to keep talking about that because it sends me back. We're talking about the fear factor today. The fear factor in neighboring. And if you are, any time during our service today, you've got a question or a comment, you want to chime in on this conversation, because I would love for that, then just text your comment or your question to 916-424-5433. That number's on the bulletin, both front and back, and it's on the bottom of the slides along the way. So if you want to text something, I would love this to be more interactive today. So it brings me back to Jesus' words. And here's Jesus' words. This is the root of all of this. If you've been here every week, you know this is the root of it. Teacher, which is the most important commandment in the law of Moses? And Jesus answered, you must love the Lord your God with all your what? Heart, and with all your soul, and with all your mind. He says this is the first and greatest commandment. But then he says a second is, what is it? Equally important. Equally important. And it is?
Love your neighbor as yourself.
Love your neighbor as yourself. Jesus says, you want to follow me? You want to do what I'm asking? All you got to do is love your neighbor. And we've been asking the question, What if Jesus meant our actual neighbors? You know, those people who live to the right, to the left, across the street, behind our back fence. What if Jesus was talking about those people? And if you will begin to fill out your neighborhood map, if you'll begin to fill that out and fill that in, I think you are going to get sucked into a new way of living. You're going to get sucked into a way of living where these strangers in your neighborhood become acquaintances. And just maybe those acquaintances could become good friends. It could give life to you and to them. I had somebody else this week tell me the story about meeting one of their neighbors, and they were out in the center of the street, and within 5 minutes, this guy was unpacking his entire life story about a family member who had died and the inheritance and the fighting with the families and the this and the that. And I'm listening to this, I'm thinking, how desperate is this guy to share his life? That within 5 minutes, he's opening up his entire life to these neighbors that he's just met and gotten their names. Like, that's what's happening out there. And so, as you begin to fill that in, but the question is, how do we take those next steps to go from acquaintance to relationship? Because the step that I showed you before was, if you can fill out this block map, you can go from stranger to acquaintance. But how do you go from acquaintance to a real relationship with somebody? And I got to be honest with you, there is no simple tool for that. There is no simple tool to go from acquaintance to a real relationship. And I will tell you that why most people don't take the plunge, why they won't do that, why they won't go there, is honestly because of fear. It is a huge obstacle to being a good neighbor. It is a huge obstacle to loving your neighbor. We are just afraid. Now, you're afraid of those people, and some people, maybe you're not, but a lot of people are afraid of those people, and there's a lot of reasons why. But I'll give you one reason why I think we're more and more afraid of our neighbors. And I think it's the 24-hour news cycle. You know how we get news 24/7, and you hear horrific things on the news. Do you know what I'm talking about? You hear about somebody somewhere in the United States who has had their kids chained up in the basement of their house. And you start to think to yourself, oh, my neighbor looks fishy. Right? You start to think, I don't know if, I haven't seen their kids. You start to think these crazy things about people, and the reason you think it is because you don't know them. And as a result, we live with this fear. And they're probably thinking the same thing about you, to be honest. They might think that you're crazy. And as a result, we don't get to know each other. Now, this morning I'm going to talk a little bit about a passage of Scripture. But one of the best ways to get to know people is at a party. Woo!
True.
How many people like parties?
Yeah.
You guys are wusses, can I just
like
tell you?
them.
How many people enjoy going to a party, a good party? Yes, thank you. That's what I'm talking about. I have a party. What if Christians threw the best parties? Yeah, everybody's like, that ain't happening right now, right? We think Christian, when you think Christian and party, what do you think? Lame party. That's what you think. You think party that is no good. Party I don't want to go to. That ain't a party. Let me tell you about a party, right? And the truth of the matter is we don't throw great parties. But what if we threw the greatest parties? Because let me tell you a little secret. Jesus partied. Do you know that? Jesus was a partier. Big time Jesus was a partier. Now, I know you don't think of Jesus that way, but if you've read the New Testament at all, over and over again, we see Jesus showing up at parties. He's at parties every time you turn the corner in the New Testament. He's at a wedding. He's at a dinner party. Any celebration or gathering, Jesus is there at the party. And he's all doing everything you can. And the funny thing is, if we look at discipleship, what it means to be a Christian, discipleship means to become more and more like Jesus Christ. And that's what it means. That's the end result of discipleship, to be more and more like Jesus Christ. Have you ever heard somebody with the bracelet that says WWJD? What would Jesus do? Well, let me tell you something. Jesus would party. Did you know that? Jesus would party. He would be at the party. And the truth of the matter is that's true. Jesus, when he went to parties, can I just tell you something? When Jesus went to parties, he went to parties with seriously sketchy people. Do you know that? Like every time he's at a party, you're like, oh my goodness, like these people are not right. Like Jesus hung out with these people. He loved these people. He was at the parties with those people. And I think sometimes the problem is for Christians is that you see a party maybe going on down the street, or you hear about a party with some coworkers at work, and you think to yourself, should I go to that party? Because, Steve, it sounds like there's going to be a lot of alcohol at this party, right? And my response is, yeah, there probably is. And it might get crazy at that party. You know who would still be at that party? Jesus. He was at these parties where things went sideways, where the people there had a reputation. He was like that all the time. Now, I know some of you don't get the wrong idea. Just because it's going to be like it at a party doesn't mean you go to a party and get hammered, okay? Some of you are planning keg runs on the way home from church. Pastor Steve said, we can get hammered, right? No, the truth of the matter is that Jesus went to those parties and interacted with those people. And the interesting thing is he did that over and over again. Now, I grew up a church kid. Anybody else grew up a church kid? I grew up a church kid, and as a church kid, I was told there was no alcohol in my home, not at all. I just am not used to it. Didn't happen at my house. And when I was growing up, I had well-meaning, and they should have been saying this, youth pastors who said, show me your friends and I'll show you your future. Show me, if the people you hang out with are going to become the influences in your life, and they're going to do this, that, and the other thing. And honestly, that's good advice. It really is good advice when you're a kid. But at some point, we carry that into adulthood, and we say, oh, that's still the way it should be. Even though I'm a solid, mature Christian, I shouldn't hang out with those people. And here's the problem. If you read the scriptures, it isn't true. That's not what Jesus did. That's not how Jesus lived. He didn't do that. And so I'm going to share with you a story this morning. And it's gonna hopefully it'll rock your world a little bit. But it's a story like that. It's Jesus at a party. And Jesus is at a party at a pastor's house. He's at a pastor's house, and there's a party going on there. And this pastor was a religious leader. He had heard about Jesus, was intrigued by Jesus, but he still was just kind of checking Jesus out. And so he invites Jesus to this banquet at his home. If you've got your outlines, follow along with me. We're going to dive into the scriptures this morning. This is out of Luke chapter 7. One of the Pharisees asked Jesus to have dinner with him. So Jesus went to his home and what? Sat down to eat. He's at a dinner party. When a certain, what? Immoral woman from that city heard he was eating there, she brought a beautiful alabaster jar filled with expensive perfume. Then she knelt behind him at his feet, what? Weeping. And her tears fell on his what? Feet. And she wiped them off with her hair, and then she kept what? Kissing his feet and putting what? Perfume on them. Now, I want to tell you, back in this time, when you had a banquet, it had a little bit more of a public feel than the way we do parties now. When we do parties, we do them inside our house or in the backyard, or we rent the falls or something like that. And we have a party and it's exclusive. Almost, we don't put bouncers at the door, but really we're sending a message. You're not invited. You're not really a part of this. In this day and time, the guy would host the party in his home, and he would have the party in the courtyard, which was kind of open to the city. And so anybody who was walking by would have an avenue where they could see that the party was going on and maybe kind of easily wander into the party. If this was today and you were walking by the party and you were like, oh, hot wings, right? Or crab cakes or nachos, like, oh, I could stay for a little while, right? And so they would come in and they could just easily kind of move in to this party. Now, we see in this passage that an immoral woman. Now, for those of you who are not Bible scholars, at this immoral woman, when you read that, what you should read is this: prostitute. She was a prostitute. She was probably a prostitute that everybody knew she was a prostitute. And so she's walking by the party, she sees Jesus, and she thinks to herself, man, if I could just slip into this party. Because I've heard about this Jesus guy, and I've heard some of the things he's taught, and it's overwhelming me. And she slides into this party, and she comes face to face with Jesus, and she is overwhelmed by Jesus. She's overwhelmed by him. And as a result, she starts kissing his feet, and I kind of picture this as ugly crying. How many people know what I'm talking about with ugly cry? There's kind of that, oh, Rudy. Sorry, I cry a little bit of Rudy every time. But then there's ugly crying. There's ugly crying when you watch somebody who has really lost something, or when it's really deep. And I kind of think she's ugly crying on Jesus' feet. And she's crying, and she's wiping off his feet with her hair, and she's putting perfume on his feet. And here's the interesting: Jesus' feet would have been dirty and dusty. In fact, we're going to find out in just a few verses later that the host of the party hadn't cleaned Jesus' feet, which was kind of customary. And as a result, he had been walking on dusty roads. It was nasty and dirty, and she is bawling at Jesus' feet and wiping his dirty feet with her hair. She is overwhelmed by Jesus. She's overwhelmed by that. And then she grabs this alabaster jar of perfume. And she takes this perfume, and this perfume would have probably been the most expensive thing that she owned. In fact, because she was a prostitute, it was probably her marketing plan. You know what I'm talking about, people? If I put on the perfume, people will know I am open for business, and they will come. And instead of doing that, she cracks open this perfume and pours it all out on Jesus' feet and continues to weep and wash his feet and clean it with her hair. She is overwhelmed by Jesus. And Simon, this Pharisee, this religious leader, this pastor guy, is watching the whole thing. Let me ask you a question. If you were watching this scene, how would you feel? What would you think if you were at this party with a little plate with some nachos on the side and you're watching this go down? What would you be thinking? Now, let me ask you something that goes along with maybe where you're at in life right now. When was the last time you made religious people uncomfortable because of the people you hang out with? When was the last time you made religious people uncomfortable because of the people you hang out with? What do you think the people in that courtyard were thinking at the pastor's house, watching the prostitute walk in and dump perfume on Jesus' feet? What do you think they were actually thinking there? I bet you there was some, I can't believe it. I don't know, should somebody do something? Like, should we get her out of here? How did that go down? What were they thinking? Because they would just, awkward, right? Awkward. What do you do in that particular moment? Well, we know what at least one person was thinking. We know what Simon was thinking, the pastor. When the Pharisee who had invited him saw this, he what? Said to himself. This is important. He said to himself, if this man were a prophet, he would know what kind of woman is touching him. She's a sinner. She's a prostitute. She's a sinner. And then Jesus answered his thoughts. Simon, he said to the Pharisee, I have something to say to you. Go ahead, teacher, Simon replied. Now, when I'm reading the Bible, I don't know about you guys, but when I'm reading the Bible, every once in a while, a few words leap off the page at me and it messes with me. He answered his thoughts. You might want to circle that. Answered his thoughts. This guy is thinking to himself something, and Jesus goes, Let me answer your thoughts before you even speak it. Let me just answer your thoughts. And Jesus goes into this story, and he answers them. Listen to what he says. He says, Jesus told him this story. A man loaned money to how many? Two people. 500 pieces of silver to one and 50 pieces to the other. But neither of them could what? Repay him. So he kindly, what did he do? Forgave them both, canceling their debts. Who do you suppose loved him more after that? Then he turned to the woman and said to Simon, look at this woman, kneeling here. When I entered your home, you didn't offer me water to wash the dust from my feet, but she has washed them with her tears and wiped them with her hair. You didn't greet me with a kiss, but from the time I first came in, she has not stopped kissing my feet. You neglected the courtesy of olive oil to anoint my head, but she has anointed my feet with rare perfume. I tell you, her sins, and they are many, have been forgiven. So she has shown me much love. But a person who is forgiven little shows only little love. Then Jesus said to the woman, your sins are forgiven. Now, let me paint this for you in our world. Ready? Two guys, both have fallen into debt. First guy's just a little behind, right? Cell phone bill maybe got ahead of him last month, couldn't quite make the payment. So there's they add on the tack on the charge and the finance charge and the penalty fee and whatever else it is. A couple of times we're just low on gas and then you were like, let's go out to eat anyway, even though we don't have the money. And you got a credit card bill, maybe running about $1,500. Okay? You're in trouble, but not that much trouble. Then there's another guy. This guy has spent a lifetime making bad decisions, right? He is maxed out 4 different credit cards. They're maxed completely to the max, and he's just barely making minimum payments. He's got a brand new car that he's defaulted on that payment to. He's just waiting for the car to be repossessed. He's also in foreclosure on his home. And when you add up all the debt he has, he's got probably $250,000 worth of debt. And the president of the bank calls him and says, calls both these guys and says, basically, I am going to cancel your debt. Now, which guy did that rock his entire world? Big debt guy or little debt guy? Big debt guy. Little debt guy is like, thanks. Credit card's wiped out, but I'm good. Big debt guy says, you just changed everything for me. It's a second chance. It's a whole new life. It's a whole new way to approach this life that I'm after. And Simon says, yep, big guy debt, right? I love the way Jesus starts this passage. If you look back into this passage, he says this. He says, look at the woman kneeling here. Look at this woman kneeling here. And he turns to Simon and he says, hey, you see this woman? Like, this has been a conversation between Simon and Jesus up until this point. And then he says, in fact, in the NIV, it says it this way. Do you really see this woman? I mean, do you really see her? Because, you know, in the NIV, it says it like this. It says, then he turned toward the woman and said to Simon, do you see this woman? And that is such a powerful question, because the truth of the matter is Simon never really saw the woman. This was an intruder. This was somebody who had muscled in on his party. He was looking past her, man. He didn't even recognize her as having the dignity to be there. It was beneath him, this woman was, who had wandered in. She didn't belong at this party. She didn't matter. She didn't matter to Simon. She didn't matter to society. And in his thinking, she didn't even matter to God. Like, look at this woman who's just sitting here. He never even saw her. And here's the brutal, brutal truth for you and I. How often do we look at people and don't really see them? We don't see them. We just look right past them. We get back to our schedule, our priorities, our life, and we don't even see these people who are hurting in front of us. We write them off, and we do this all the time in our neighborhoods. People live all around us, and we don't even see them. Last week we talked about the time barrier. If you don't have the time to interact with these people in your life, if you're not interruptible enough to interact with them in your life. But the second one is just as big. It's this fear factor, this huge fear factor. We don't get involved because we're afraid of what will happen if we get involved in their lives. First, we don't see them, and then we do see them, and we're just afraid and don't want to get involved in their lives. Now listen, there are some legitimate fears to neighboring. There are some legitimate fears of neighboring. Let me give you a couple of them. Ready? Here's the first one. Legitimate fears of neighboring. The fear of rejection. Fear of rejection. How many people remember this note from junior high school? I like you. Do you like me? Check yes or no. How many people had this happen to them in junior high school? How many people had the wrong box checked at some point, right? And you're like, dang it. Like, we have been afraid of rejection since junior high school when we put ourselves out there and somebody said, I don't like you. I don't like you like that. I don't like you. You're funny looking. Right? You may put yourself out there with a neighbor and say, I'm going to engage, I'm going to try, and you may even end up liking your neighbors, and then they go, yeah, I don't really have time for you. It's a legitimate fear. It's absolutely true. Could happen. Let me give you another legitimate fear of neighboring. Not only fear of rejection, but neighboring is messy. Yeah, thank you. Preach over there. Neighboring's messy. It's not simple. It's not easy. It can go any which way but loose. And you don't know how every interaction is going to turn out. You're going to walk up and they're either going to scream at you about your lawn or they're going to open up about their life, you know. And you just don't know what's going to happen. It is totally, totally messy. I want to show you a quick video from a church and some people who've been doing this neighboring thing. And it just kind of shares what it's like to neighbor when it's messy.
Hi, we're Todd and Carla Tillapa, and we moved into this neighborhood 6.5 years ago, not knowing what God would have for us here, but He has brought some wonderful folks into our lives, especially our neighbor Chris and her family.
My name is Chris, and I have been a longtime foster parent, and I've adopted 7 kids out of the foster system.
We thought the Clampets had moved in. Just lots of stuff is left out all over, and it trickles around the neighborhood. In the summertime, there's stuff everywhere, and not only in their house, but on our house and our yard. So we joke about that with Chris and her family. Man, the Clampets need to clean up their front yard.
You know, it's just managed chaos, I think, is the best way to look at that. And some things get dropped to the wayside.
It's not like we've gotten past it and everything's fine now. There's still a struggle. There's still stuff, and when I get home from work and there's stuff in our front yard, we're like, But, you know, that's part of it. It's remaining in the mess. and remaining in the relationship, even though there's some frustrations and things like that.
And I think to look beyond that, the outward appearance, and go, okay, what's going on there that is a lot deeper, and knowing that in the midst of all that mess, Chris and their family is investing in the lives of kids that nobody else wanted. And so can we join her in that? Can we join her in investing in those kids?
My neighborhood has really, really, really embraced my family. You know, you've heard that saying, it takes a village. It really does take a village to raise kids and be in a household this size. I know they got my back. I know that they do. And they do it because they want to help.
And I'll tell you the other thing that is tempting at times is to look at them like a project.
Yeah.
Like, we're going to teach them how to clean up and take care of their yard and clean their house and stuff like that. And so it's been, that's a temptation, but it's a part of us that we've kind of discovered to go, you know, it's not about them being a project. It's about just loving them where they're at in the midst of it.
And then being the receivers of that too, you know, because it's not just us loving on them. Man, Chris has loved on our family in incredible ways, has loved our kids, has ministered to our kids, to us personally, in really wonderful ways. I mean, our neighborhood has become our missional community, and that's who we do life with, is our neighbors.
Probably the greatest cost is time and just comfort, you know. I mean, sometimes it feels like an invasion when there's a crisis going on, or just she wants to sit and talk or whatever, and you know, the Nuggets are on or something else, and so yeah, and sometimes you're very aware of that, and other times it doesn't feel like a big deal.
It has helped me so incredibly much, just for them to care enough, just as a neighbor, to come over and like, what can we do to help?
What does it look like to take that step? What does it take like to move forward in those relationships? Because it's going to be messy. And you've got to dive into the mess and just commit to being there in the mess. And then here's the third one. Legitimate fears of neighboring. Not only is it rejection, not only is it neighboring is messy, but your neighbors are there all the time. They never leave. Like, you ever notice that? Like, it's crazy because you can't get away from your neighbors, right? They're always there. When you come home from work, guess who's there? Your neighbors, right? You go to pick up the kids and you come home, well, who's there? Your neighbors. They're waiting for it. You think, I got to get away for the weekend. Guess what? You drive back in, who do you see? Your neighbors. They're right there. You can never kind of get away from them. The truth of the matter is, it is way easier to go on a mission trip to Honduras and to drill a well and high five when you're pumping cold water. You want to know why? Because you're going to get back on a plane. And guess what? You're going to go home and you're going to leave that place. When you go downtown and we serve the homeless and we meet them once a month and meet some needs, but when the coffee's gone and the clothes is gone, guess what we do? We pack up our cars and we go home. And you know who's waiting for us? Our neighbors. They're always there. Don't these people have vacation or anything? And the truth of the matter is, you can't get away from them, and they know you. Your neighbors, I guarantee you, have heard you shout at your kids. If you've ever shouted at your kids with the door or the window open, they're like, oh, what's going on over there? Right? If you've ever had a loud fight with your spouse, I know none of you ever have, but hypothetically, our air conditioning doesn't work that good, so the windows are open all the time. You know what I'm saying, in my house? And as a result, if you have a fight with your spouse, they're like, oh, little trouble in paradise, isn't there? And you're like, yeah, that's not good. But here's the thing. They also see when I hug my kids. They also see when I kiss my wife goodbye at the door, or when we embrace on the way in. And the truth of the matter is here's the thing. In neighboring, you cannot put on your super Christian cape and come in to save the day, because they know you're junk. And they're always there. And they see it all the time. And as a result, these are all legitimate fears to neighboring. They're legitimate fears. And here's what I'm going to tell you anyway. So what? So what? I wonder if God isn't calling us to look at those fears and to ask, why am I really scared of these people? And to confront those fears and to actually just say, am I supposed to do this anyway, God? Am I supposed to do this anyway? Listen to this passage here. Now, who will want to harm you if you are what? If you're eager to do good, who's going to want to harm you? But even if you suffer for doing what is right, and you could at the hand of your neighbors, God will what? Reward you for it. So don't worry or be afraid of their threats. Instead, you must what? Worship Christ as the Lord of your life. And if someone asks you about your hope as a believer, always be what? Ready to explain it. Now, so you're thinking to yourself, okay, Steve, so what? What do I do with this? How do I make sense of this? How do I live this out? This series has been very pointed at how you live this out. Because every single day you make decisions whether or not you're going to go deeper with your neighbors. Every single day you decide, am I going to do this or not? Am I willing to eat crow and say to my neighbor, I should totally know your name by now. And I've forgotten, but I'm Steve, and you are, I know you are, Reuben. But are we willing to do that? Are we willing to do that in order to start a relationship or restart a relationship? Are you willing to live at a pace where you're actually home a little bit, or in the front yard, or ready to have a conversation on your front porch? Are you ready to do that? Are you interruptible enough? Now, we've been working off of this diagram, and I want to remind you of this diagram. It's in your notes there. How do you move from stranger to acquaintance and acquaintance to relationship? And I've already kind of told you this here today, but the first tool that we gave you was the block map. From stranger to acquaintance, you fill out your block map, you get some names, and then when you walk by, you don't say, hey, bro. You say, hey, Bob, right? That's how you do that. The second thing, though, going from acquaintance to relationship, which is messy and takes time and is long-winded, but a great way to start that is with a block party. Throw a party. Do something with a block party. Jesus was at parties, so we should be at parties. We should party, people. That's what I want to get you to be, the partiest people in your neighborhood, okay? And I don't care what that party is. Maybe it's a block party. Maybe it's a game night. Maybe it's a barbecue. Maybe it's an outdoor movie. Maybe you set up a fire pit in your front yard and you make s'mores and you just kind of make it obvious that we're doing s'mores, come on over, or whatever else it is. You do that again and again. Last year, as a church, most of you know this if you've been a part of our church, we put together a block party kit. It is a trailer filled with everything you need to be the most awesome block party in your neighborhood. It has a giant event grill. It's got easy-ups and tables. It's got a giant inflatable bounce house type slide. It's got an outdoor movie projector. It's got a sound system. Parties need music. Do you know that, people? No. Parties need music. So you have music and you have food and you have something to do. And you sit around and you enjoy each other and you talk to each other. That's how you start a real relationship from an acquaintance. And so, and it's super easy to reserve this. You call 916-424-5433, or you text that to Elsie, and Elsie will reserve it for you on whatever day you want to reserve it. And it's free, completely free, absolutely free. Use it, please. And you reserve it, and then my good friend Brian Brown, most of the time, if he's not out of town or deer hunting or changing somebody else's life, he will most of the time be able to drop it off at your house, and then he'll come back and pick it up. If he can't do it, I'll do it, or somebody will do it, and we will bring this thing to you so that you can be the most popular person on your block. You can start this relationship with people at a party. And I'm begging you to please use this thing. We didn't put it together for... People ask me all the time, Steve, is it okay if I use it for my kid's birthday party? And my response is, yes! Is there going to be somebody there that you love or want to love, or a neighbor or a friend or somebody? Then please use it for your kid's birthday party. Please use this thing because it's where you can change those acquaintances into real relationships. I want to give you one more little story so that you understand that I'm not blowing smoke about this. This is another story. It's from Luke chapter 5. And it's where Jesus actually meets Matthew, who would become one of his disciples. And he says, Jesus left the town. He saw a tax collector named Levi, who would become Matthew, sitting at his tax collector's booth. Brother, tax collectors, picture IRS agent. Okay, you're not all that happy to run into the IRS. And he says, follow me and be my disciple, Jesus said to him. So Levi got up, left everything, and followed him. But this is my favorite part. Later, Levi held I think you mean party, but okay. A banquet in his home with Jesus as the guest of honor, and many of Levi's fellow what? Tax collectors, and other guests are also with him. But the Pharisees, the pastors, and Simon I'm sure may have been there, and their teachers of religious law complained bitterly to Jesus, and this is my favorite line, why do you eat and drink with what? Why do you even drink to such cup? And Jesus says, healthy people don't need a doctor, sick people do. I've come to call not those who think they are righteous, but those who know they are sinners and need to repent. I'm begging you. I'm begging you. Throw or go to a party. Now, for some of you, I know this is asking a lot. You want to know why I know it's asking a lot? Because you are an introvert. You are a get people away from me type of person. Those people are annoying and I don't want them anywhere near me. I don't like people. How many people are like that? You can own it. There we go. All the people. The introverts are like this. Yes. I don't want anyone to know. But I get it. I know that's true for some of you. And hosting a party is, oh, lordy, Lord. That is asking way too much. But here's what I'm going to beg you to do. The next time you get invited to a party, the next time you see a gathering happening in your neighborhood, I'm going to beg you. I'm going to beg you to listen to God and just walk over and say hello and join in. And see what God will do when we love our neighbors in that way. And see how He'll use you in your neighborhood. Would you just join me in prayer? God, thank you that you gave us the neighbors we have. Thank you that we have the opportunity to be in the lives of people around us. Thank you that you love us enough and you love them enough to bring us into each other's lives. God, this is not some one-way street where they are a project. God, we're as much a project as they are, and we just want to love them in the way that you've taught us to love. And God, I just thank you. I thank you for this woman who was overwhelmed with your son, Jesus. And Jesus says your sins are forgiven. Some of you here today, you're hearing my voice and you know that what God is calling you to do is to reach out and to make an effort in your neighborhood. But some of you today are probably here and you feel maybe a little bit more like the woman, like you've got so much junk, so much baggage. Why would anyone want to be in your life? Let me tell you who would be the first guy to talk to you at a party. It would be Jesus. Jesus would be the first guy to reach out to you, to love you, to care about you. And He wants desperately to forgive your sins. He paid the price for your sins on the cross. And He wants to forgive your sins, whatever they are, because you belong at the party. You belong at His party. God, I pray today for anyone that's feeling that way, Father, that you would open their heart to receive you, to hear the truth of who your Son Jesus is, to accept that forgiveness, and to begin a relationship with Him. And if that's you today and you want to do that, before you leave, I beg you, come talk to me. Talk to whoever you came with. Talk to a growth group leader, somebody, and say, I really want that. I need God's forgiveness today. And let's not leave here today until you've gotten that forgiveness, because He's offering it to you today. Father God, I pray that you would move in our hearts and our minds, that we would love the people around us with reckless abandon, that we would recklessly love people regardless of the results. In your Son Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Would you stand with us? So we're going to sing a song that's new to us. It's called Reckless Love, and it's a song that really is trying to describe the love of God. And obviously, we don't have the language to try to encapsulate God, or we even really have an understanding. But the word reckless describes taking an action without regard for its consequences. And the pastors preached about, and as we see in Romans, that's the kind of love God had for us. Where He says that while we were still sinners, He died for us. And in Luke, we have the parable that's even in the song of the 99. So the shepherd who leaves the safety and security of the pasture where the 99 are safe and goes out into the wilderness to find the one that was lost. And that's the love that God has for us. It pursues us. And maybe that's a little bit of what we need to emulate with our neighbors, that reckless love for our neighbors. So let's sing, let's celebrate the love that God has for us.
You were saying life in me. You have been so, so kind to me. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Oh, it chases me down, fights till I'm found, leaves the 99. I couldn't earn it, I don't deserve it, still you give yourself away. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. When I was your foe, still your love fought for me. You have been so, so good to me. When I found no worth, you paid it all for me. You have been so, so kind to me. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Oh, it chases me down, fights till I'm found, leaves the 99. I couldn't earn it, I don't deserve it, still you give yourself away. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God.
Amen, amen. All right, comments, questions. What do you got, Val? We were slightly fearful the kind of people two of our neighbors might be because of their lawns. But your confession of your lawn allayed our fears, and we introduced ourselves. They were delightful. Bad lawns do not mean bad people, people. Here's one. A suggestion for introverts who may not want to throw or even go to a party. Give an individual invitation to your neighbors to lunch or dinner or games at your home. It does not need to be a huge party.
Yeah.
You can have a conversation out in front of somebody's house one-to-one if you're way more comfortable with that. Is a great suggestion. Thank you, Brenda. And why did we skip God sightings today? I'll tell you why, because I want to do God sightings maybe at the end of our service. And it's because I think maybe God might stir something up in you during the message that maybe you want to share. So is there anybody who has something that's just burning that they want to share about what God is doing in their lives or how they're neighboring or something along those lines? Going deep. Nice. Good time, too.
So after I went to the bathroom last week, I came back and I guess we got a picnic table.
Yes, you did. That's what happens when you go to the bathroom.
And you dropped it off, and then the next night we sat out front, and I think about a total about 7 neighbors got together. And the 2 that you met when we're talking with my wife and how awesome it was that the pastor would drop it off. And then another neighbor got it and was like, well, I don't go to church because I just don't want people telling me where I'm going to go, if I'm going to go to hell or not. My wife got to talk about how our church is the love of Christ, and I would like to share that. So just with this, God's sighting, just got to just speak about it just by dropping off the picture.
Awesome. Thanks, man. Anybody else got something you want to share? God's been doing, or you've seen God show up maybe in some special way this week that we can, as a church, man. Oh yeah, I know you know me.
So my wife had some of the neighbors over to talk about this possible grant for somebody for neighborhood stuff, which is already kind of that idea. But I was going to take the girls up and do bath and just be away from all of that. And one of the women brought over her son, who's right between my girls' ages. And so instead I got to spend the next hour and a half just hanging out with him and babysitting and sort of hanging out with all the kids. And apparently he hasn't stopped talking about coming over to our house and hanging out. We ran into him just yesterday getting home. They saw me pulling in and were like, he's like, we gotta go talk to them. We gotta go see them.
So awesome. God uses those moments big time. Anybody else? Something God is doing. There we go. Oh, deep. Oh, nice job. Rub behind. Grace, what was that? Come on. She just tucked and rolled. All right, go ahead.
Okay, so we have a neighbor that lives behind us. And I have been to Mr. Wilson. I've only talked to him
Over the fence?
No,
Through the fence. That's even worse.
Fence is too tall for me.
Yeah.
So I've talked to him and introduced myself to him, but I've never actually seen his face. And so we were on our way home from church the first Sunday, and we walked the other way, and he was getting into his car. And so we walked over and said, yeah, I'm that person you talked to through the fence. Gary had actually talked to him over the fence with a ladder. But, so anyway, just wonderful family from Cameroon. And so we said, I want to meet you face to face, and got his wife's name and stuff. And so he said, we wanted to meet you. He goes, well, why don't you have us over for a barbecue?
Nice.
I haven't done it yet, but we're definitely going to do that.
Oh, that's
so
awesome. I like they initiate the party.
Yeah, I know.
Hey, you know what you should do? Buy me dinner. Anybody else? Somebody, I don't want to cut it off if you got something to share. God's at work. I think one of the differences between our church and some other churches is I really view this church as a church family. And what God is doing, He's doing out there all the time. And when you come here and you share it, we all get to understand what it looks like to live this out week in and week out. To live it out in your dorm room. To live it out in your apartment. To live it out in your neighborhood. Yes.
Okay.
And
Sorry.
you got me dead?
There we go.
And your workplace
Yes.
also. And my workplace is unique. I work in schools doing school-based mental health therapy. This was my first week when I actually finally had all of the paperwork in, so I could see pretty much like 11 different clients and student clients. So they're mostly middle school and elementary school, some of them. But it occurs to me I can't really share what goes on in my workplace because of confidentiality. But I can share how it impacts me, and just like I feel so privileged that this is the work I get to do and go and be with people in their, with these young kids in their hard places and the things they don't have control of in their life. And it's just like awesome to finally get to be doing like what I've been looking forward to doing for like 6 years.
Yeah. Look what God does. That's all right. It's all right. I love what God does. He says, watch this. I'll drop Katie into this spot, and she can be my hands and feet. I'll drop you into your neighborhood. You can be my hands and feet. Hey, God bless you as you go today. I want to remind you of one thing that we won't ever want to forget. We don't go to church. We don't go to church. We are the church. We are the church. So let's go be the church. Let's go be the church. God bless you as you go.
invite you back to my car. Yeah, I do all the time.
I know, us also.
I'll make it happen. We'll get you home. Let me ride that, okay?